everyone. Welcome to the Femme Tell All podcast. My name is Madison Bellissimo.
And I'm Ruth Devereaux.
And we're so happy you're here.
We're happy you're here.
Unfortunately, we don't have happy news this week.
We don't. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this news as
this new study that came out that scientists found an elevated levels, of toxic metals in tampons.
Yes.
First study of its kind.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise.
Well, that was like a poll. I saw a lot of polls too asking women if they were shocked by this news, and nobody was.
No.
Because women's healthcare is not studied, not cared about.
A priority.
Like it is not. Yeah. And tell us a little bit more about the study.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell like a little background about the study because we were obviously enraged and wanted to look into all of this. And I had sent you so many things. You had sent me things that we were finding on the internet that just were enraging, truly.
Well, and the scary thing was too, we were both on our period.
Yeah,
and you see this news and you're
currently
utilizing
have a tampon in.
Yeah.
While we're recording, you know. And it's crazy. So, well, first of all, I wanted to say that 80%, right? It's 80% of menstruating people in the U.S. Use tampons. So this is not like you just stop using tampons.
No,
Not everyone uses them. Yeah, not everyone, but 80% of menstruating people use tampons.
Well, and here's the thing too, like the cotton that's used in tampons isn't different in a pad. No. So like what would be the difference?
That part. Thank you for saying that. But so they tested 14 major brands. This was UC Berkeley, Columbia, and Michigan State University. They tested 14 major brands in the EU and the US. 30 tampons in general. So out of those 14 brands, and they tested 16 heavy metals, and 12 of the 16 metals were present in the tampons tested. But all 30 organic and non-organic tampons sampled did contain heavy metals in them. And unfortunately, the non-organic tampons had a higher lead level, and the organic tampons, which you would think are safer, you're spending more money to ensure a little better ingredients, had more arsenic present.
Yeah, people use to kill people with. Yeah. Let's put it in our bodies.
Yeah, and heavy metal toxicity and like exposure can lead to so many health issues. I even took a little screenshot of some that like are present. They say any kind of long-term exposure to heavy metals could cause arrhythmia, could cause anemia, brain damage, memory loss, difficulty breathing, kidney damage, liver damage, miscarriage in people who are pregnant, and risk of developing cancer. So it's not like small concerns that we would be privy to or like aware of when we're going, okay, well, we're exposed to heavy tampons. And also the uterine walls of the vagina are so permeable to any kind of, like, there's already toxic shock syndrome just from using tampons as far as, like, overusing them.
No wonder we had that warning for so many years.
Yes.
Maybe, did they know?
No. They said this is the first study of their kind. I don't think they've ever looked into what kind of things are. And their scientists are theorizing that it's not only through the cotton itself, like where the cotton is grown, what it might be environmentally affected by, like water, and the actual place it might be. It could be by lead exposing places, but also through the manufacturing of these tampons to create them, to make them more white and to make them antibacterial. Wow. That's where they're saying that they're theorizing that's where we're being exposed to these things. So obviously, it's enraging. It's
scary because they're like, obviously some of the things you've listed off, I'm sure people have been affected by health-wise.
Oh, 100%.
And how do we know where those health concerns are coming or those health causes are coming from? Because over the years of utilizing these products, assuming they're safe, assuming if it's on the shelf at a store, it's been tested for something that could be harmful, especially something that's going inside somebody's body.
And spending hours there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think the FDA would take some consideration and concern. Yeah.
So that's where we are.
Yeah.
That's what we know. And the unfortunate thing is there aren't a lot of options outside of what's being provided today. And there are options like a cup, but for Madison and I we both have an IUD, and you cannot utilize a cup with that because of the suction issues.
They highly do not recommend, which I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I was given the IUD for a year. Like, it was inserted.
Yeah.
They did not tell me then.
I had no idea either.
Not once.
I didn't know until you told me.
I brought it up to you because I was looking at a new kind of the Flex Disc, which is another type of period product. And I was like researching a shit ton on the Flex Disc because it's like the first of its kind. And in that research, I saw women being like, well, because I have the IUD, this is the next best option other than a cup because I can't use a cup. And I went, hold on, what? Because you're right. It's the suction mechanism of a cup can technically dislodge the IUD.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to you.
Yeah.
And it's
I wouldn't have even thought of that.
No,
because you think it's like far enough.
I'm sure there are many women that are still using, people with uteruses that are using suction, like using menstrual cups, thinking they're doing the right thing, thinking they're being healthier, thinking they're being more environmentally friendly, eco-friendly. And it could be completely messing up the position and the efficiency of their IUD. It's so upsetting. And to your point, cotton is not just used in tampons.
It's not.
This cotton is probably being used for liners, pads, all the things that we use.
Because everybody that's going to develop or have a line of tampons are going to have a line of all menstruating products, right?
Usually.
So like you can't. They're definitely using the same cotton, and that's going in a very like area that's like open.
It's a very specific area.
Yeah.
It's exposed. Again, we said the uterine walls and in the vaginal canal is very permeable to exposure of many things. So
and even in the study, they're saying like, oh, we don't know if the vaginal walls can take in heavy metals. I'm like, how has the woman's body not been tested at all? Like, how do we know so much about ED, but not about how a woman's internal like vaginal walls work? Like, how is this?
I don't understand it either. And if we are getting, if we have to sign multiple papers in a lease document to be exposed to lead potentially on paint that was from the 70s, that is
layers
5
and
layers, 6 layers deep, 7 layers deep.
Yeah.
If we're having to sign lead disclosures for every time we fucking sign a lease, that's insane to me. That like we are physically putting lead into our body. That's a potential exposure to lead and heavy metals.
Yeah.
And they're going, whoa, you got to know the risks, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's very uncommon, but you got to know because there are birth defects with lead. There are, for children, it's learning disabilities.
Yeah.
It's growth disabilities. It's insanity. And so they're telling us that to be like, whoa, you have to know what you could be exposed to. And yet, I could pop in 4 tampons a day.
Yeah, easily.
What
was the one number we saw? It was 11,000 tampons a person will go through in 5 years.
5 years.
11,000.
That's the average, right? This is not even counting heavy bleeding, any kind of like, and because of my IUD, I definitely bleed heavier than I did without the IUD.
Yeah.
I use a lot more period products than I did before I had the IUD. And again, we've talked about the IUD on here on our birth control episode. We chose that because it was a non-hormonal, option.
We thought it was the best option for us.
We're trying to go. We're taking the safest out of
the options that are available
horrific
to us.
Options, you know. And it's just wild to me that not only are these options so limited for women, and again, this is for something that we can, and people with uteruses, but like this is something we can't control. This is not like I kept racking my brain this week of like, what is the male equivalent or someone that is born assigned male at birth? You know, I'm like, what is the male equivalent of something that you're exposed to daily, monthly, something like that you are exposing yourself to, that you could get the wool pulled over your eyes and been like, oh, by the way, this could have been extremely toxic and we don't know what the effects are, but you've been exposed to them.
What would it be?
Nothing. I can't even think of anything. The funniest thing that I went to is like protein powder. I literally was like, what are men fucking shooting up? And
like, no.
Yeah. And I'm like, flips the table. You know? And I'm like, that's the closest thing that I can think of. And that's not.
The only other thing I could think of is any kind of like drug that they would need to take on a daily basis. Yes. But then we also saw that in drug test, they're generally using men because they think that women's hormones affect the testing of of drug usage.
No, strictly using men. Yeah. They're worried about it. Again, they're trying to get these drugs passed. They're trying to get these are in the trials. They're trying to get the efficacy of these drugs to be promoted and being like, and this is great. And because women's hormonal cycles are so variable, and we're on the 28 to, I think it's 32, 34. I'm sorry, I'll quote that later. But we're on that cycle. Men's hormonal cycle is 24 hours. It's a day. It's every day that hormonal cycle restarts.
They're good.
So that's why there's too much variation with women. So they don't even let women in the drug trials, in the testing.
So dosage is all based off of men and their hormonal levels, and therefore leading to women having more issues with the drugs that they're taking.
Because go figure, I'm sure hormones do affect them. And I'm not saying to, like, I understand where drug companies would be like, well, we want to make it the like most efficient as far as like seeing without variables, but you have to test with variables to see how it could affect others.
That's science. Science is testing with variables. That's why you become a scientist.
Yeah, I'm like, isn't this what you guys get off on? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just, yes. Yeah. So to your point, you're right. Continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I think that's the closest thing I could think of, somebody having to put something in their body every day. But there is no direct link because men don't have to deal with something continuously, unless it's like a health issue. But like, just like innate in their body,
biologically. That like a typical person with a uterus menstruates. Yeah, the shedding of their uterine wall.
So we can create life.
We do this for you. Yes. And I'm like, that is something that happens unless you do have a major health concern that has stopped it. But the majority of people with a uterus, that happens. Yeah. That happens. And so there isn't the male equivalent of like, oh, you guys have to take it would be food, it would be water, it would be things like that everyone is exposed to. Exactly. It's not a gender
specific thing.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's what's scary, because it is so gender specific. We're not seeing the studies go towards it until now. And then the first study we hear about in this realm,
2024.
Yes. So welcome to the new world.
Yeah.
And the first study you hear about is this is the outcome. And what I would really like to see is, what does this change in the industry? Yeah. Now that they see this, now that they have this knowledge, what do they do to make a difference? Yeah. Like, how do they protect their consumer that is paying the money to utilize these products?
Yeah. That's a funny thought. Like, I don't think they're trying to protect their consumer. Because like even the organic tampons, like that was something, because I follow a lot of like economically, environmentally like friendly girlies that are like, I only buy organic or blah, 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 you know? And even some organic brands that promote themselves as clean, natural, organic, dye-free, you know, all these things, they have been bought by bigger corporations, conglomerates, and then they change the, you know, the formulation of the
actual. It's all about the dollar bill.
Yes,
like they just want
they're
to
trying
produce
to produce it as cheap and as fast as possible. Yeah. And so, like, I do use an organic tampon brand. I have always like, as soon as I found out that like there was so much shit in tampons, even before like a study like this had come out, I remember it was like probably 10 years ago, once organic tampons were on the market, I started using them. And I was doing my research, and I feel good about the brand that I use, but I'm still like, who knows? In this study, they didn't even release the names.
I know.
And it's so like, and I understand, but I'm also like, release the name. Yeah. Because I'm like, we should know what we're putting into our body.
Well, and the scary thing is too, like, for women or people that have to buy these products but don't have the economic status to be able to spend more money on products that 100%. Are safer for them, they're forced into using something that they know is putting something into their body.
The cheapest. I have a huge luxury and a privilege, honestly. Yeah. Being able to afford these, you know, and thank you for reminding me of that, because it's like, it's easy for me to be like, no, but I'm so glad you're saying it, because you're right. There's so many people that don't even have options. They don't have any options. No. And they're like, I saw a girl even in the comments that was like, I was so poor once that I couldn't even afford menstrual products, that I was using toilet paper. And she was like, funny enough, I probably was using one of the cleanest things I could have used. And I'm like,
seriously?
That's insane. And talk about also, we haven't even gotten into this, but like fucking tampons, a lot of the modern day, because of comfortability, which I agree. Plastic is more comfortable than the cardboard that they used to have. But plastic applicators too. And we could talk about the fucking BPAs that are in the plastic.
Yeah.
And like, it's just...
And it's going into us. I know.
And it's just...
There's got to be a better option. And this is where we come back to like studies for women's healthcare, because like this is what we've just accepted as options, right? The cup just finally came out recently. Like, I don't even think it's that old.
I think it's like 10 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And so like, why is there nothing else? There's got to be another option here.
There's that flex disc that I told you about. Yeah. But like, I think besides that,
what is
there? Not really many things. Yeah. Like, and even that is like,
but there might be even like an
and
ingenuity that we haven't even thought of yet, because there's no time and money being put into these studies to think of that.
And there wasn't until last year, I believe, was the first study that they finally started using blood to actually test menstrual products.
To test products that are for blood.
They were using saline solutions, water.
Oh,
they were
that's
using
the same thing.
It's not the same. That's the craziest thing. Is like you thought, and like again, the efficacy of these products was
based off of that.
It's just so infuriating.
It's so infuriating.
And I know that we're laughing about it, but it really is disheartening because...
Well, it's just scary overall, just because like you don't know the long-term effects. You don't know how many people have maybe had health like conditions come up because of this, but never pinpointed it back to this because you're not thinking about that. It's scary that you can't trust anything that's put in front of you because you don't have the ability to study as much as like you're hoping that these other agencies and governments are like looking into the safety of these uses, and you just don't know. And then even when studies do come out, you don't even know the full factors of them because it's all being given to you and what you're the information that you're allotted. Like it's not like that's all you have.
100%. And you're right. You would think and you would hope that this consideration was just from gate. You would hope that half of the population is menstruating. So you would think that they would be, I don't know, looking into regulating by any means.
And I always assume, like, even like I wear contacts and I'm like, okay, I assume like the thing I'm putting into my eye is being tested because it's such a sensitive part of my body. I assume a tampon that I'm putting into a sensitive part of my body is being tested. I assume if I buy a medicine or vitamins or anything that is being put into my body, it's being tested at some degree. Yeah. And to find this out, it has to make you question everything.
Everything that you're exposing yourself to. Yeah. And we're paying for these things. We're paying.
Top dollar.
We're getting a tax. They're taxed people. A thing that we cannot control. And we are getting taxed.
I know.
On tampons, pads, liners, menstrual products.
And I mean, like, we've talked about this, like, a little bit before, but like it's just healthcare for women as an overall that's like really questionable. Like we were re-updating ourselves on some of the stats. Like, of course, I'm sure everybody's heard of like the maternal death rate in America, much less for women of color, 3 times more likely. And this is the highest across the world, combining other countries that have our abilities and our money. Like, why are we at that level?
Status. Yeah.
Like, why are we at that level? Why are more studies being going towards ED than like endometriosis?
Thank you.
Like, why is this happening? And why are women over multiple studies saying they're not being heard by their doctors, that they're going with health concerns and they're telling them it's in their head. They're telling them it's because of their period. And then tests are finally done after they're told that they're crazy. Yeah. And they're discovering health concerns that should have been addressed immediately.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things, like specifically PCOS is it's undiagnosed so often. And again, we had seen a video of a woman talking about how she had a doctor physically just look at her and go, "You don't have it."
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. Because it's not something that would be shown on the exterior, you know, like that would have to constitute to
you
testing.
Read these comments on, if you open up any social page that's talking about the study and you read the comments from women, there are so many women that have experienced this, that have been told that they were wrong, and they've been told that they like their symptoms aren't real, that it's in their head. Like this is a problem. And I don't know if men are experiencing this too, but I'm hearing more women speak up about it now. And unfortunately, I think that across time we've been taught if a woman complains, she's just complaining, and she's being a baby, or she's or a bitch, or whatever that is. That I think that purview for even like doctors, they can't escape that, so they look at women as whiny as opposed to hearing their actual concerns and testing them.
Yeah, and specifically, like you said, people of color, like women of color.
Yeah,
when they're coming in and they have concerns about their childbirth and they're not being considered. That's why there's such an erroneous like disparity as far as women giving birth, and specifically women of color.
I saw a woman of color story where she was she'd passed during childbirth, and her husband
started his own foundation, right?
Yeah, but he was going to the doctor, and he's like, she's bleeding way more than normal, and they're like, she's fine,
she's hemorrhaging.
Fine. Yeah,
and they're
not. She's in the hospital, and they're not addressing her concern. It's a problem.
It is a problem, and it's terrifying, and it makes me, you know, when there are moments where I go, do I want to bring kids into this world? You know, it's like, God forbid I bring a daughter, you know, and like, I would love to have a daughter. Yeah. And how am I going to explain this to her? How do we, you know, how do we explain it to our sons, our brothers, our dads, you know, that this is outrageous. Yeah. And like, how are we able to sit idly by and like allow this to have gotten as far as it's gotten and then continue?
I know.
And also, this is a sidebar, but like, this ties into reproductive rights as well. You know, like, if we're getting rights stripped from us, like at the, you know,
it's like, it's so funny. You really don't have any choice over your body. Like, so if you get pregnant, you're going to be forced to keep it, but you only have an option to use arsenic or lead in your body. But the doctors won't believe you when you say there's a problem, and you'll probably die when you have this baby you're being forced to have. So like, where do we win here? Where's the line drawn of like, this isn't fair for a huge part of the population, and that things have to change.
Yeah. Where's the pro-life? One would ask. One would ask, where is the pro-life?
Where is it?
Because there are living, breathing humans in front of you that you don't give a fuck about. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
You don't. Yep. And you are harping on this religious...
What happened to the separation of church and state? I want to know that. Where did those two combine?
Wow, we could have so many follow-up episodes on this subject alone. And I honestly want to do a deeper dive, and we will on specifically on the disparity of women's health and how it's just kind of erased as far as deconsideration.
I'd love to have Mac back on for that too, just because they would
they would love to come, right, Mac?
Calling you out on the episode.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I agree. You know, we talk about it as friends a lot. And it's infuriating.
Yeah. Well, it's like, we look up these stats, and like, luckily for us, we don't have any major health issues, but then you see these women online that have gone through major health issues, and they were ignored or told that like these horrible things, and you feel their pain. Yeah. And any of us could end up there. Yeah. Any of us could be ignored. Any of us could have these problems, and we have to protect our people, and then also in turn protect ourselves and maybe our daughters in the future, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you think about like autoimmune diseases. Yeah. What was the stat? Do you have it? Or we can find it. I think it was like 10% more, women are 10% more likely to have an autoimmune disease. Women
are also 3 times more likely to be depressed. I wonder why.
This episode's depressing me. Yeah, and it's just... It's hard because it isn't this small, like you said, there are some women that are lucky like us that we haven't had major health concerns that we know of due to these things that we've been exposed to.
Also true.
That we've been exposed to. However, there are women that are not so lucky, people with uteruses that are not so lucky, that they have life-altering and sometimes life-ending experiences because of these things. Yeah. And how could you not just like...
How could you not get angry? Like, I think that even us like prepping for this episode and talking about it and not being directly affected by it per se, like we get angry. We get angry for the other women out there. We get angry for the people that have no voice, for the people that don't have the means to protect themselves. Like, we get angry for you, and we want to say something, and we want to see change happen. And this is the platform that we have, and so that's why we're utilizing it to say something.
Yeah. And I think just to bring more awareness.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like, even if we saw, like, you know, even if you this week were asking men, like, did you hear about the latest study? You know, and I would say the majority of them, if they own a social media account of some sort,
Probably,
have
yeah.
heard. Hopefully you'd hear
yeah.
it. But like, once you get into the nitty gritty with them, it's like, how much do they know actually about it? And like, how much do they know? Like, there's so many times where I have partners, or it's not even a partner. I go on a date with a guy and I say something about my period, or like having an IUD, or having, and the not only misinformation, but lack of information. And I don't fault them for that. I'm not,
No, I don't either.
in the way of, I'm not like, wow, how dare you don't care about women. But I'm just like, it's not as easily accessible, and it's not at all encouraged to know about
women's health.
like women's health. It's not encouraged to know, because you're interested in women, because you have a daughter, because you have a sister, because you have a cousin, you have a mom.
You have a mom.
Like a woman in your life.
Yeah.
And you still don't know all of these things. Like you just like kind of like, oh, don't need to know. And you're right. Like ED, erectile dysfunction. Like, I feel like I know a shit ton about that. And like, non-consensually. You know, like, I'm like, I feel like I know things, and I'm like, because it's such a like,
it's just such a talked about topic.
Yes.
Because if men are affected by that to them is life ending.
yes, it is. It's life altering completely. And you hear about it.
Yeah.
And that's why you can buy over the counter boner pills.
Well, I just learned this week that I like suffered with UTIs throughout my life. And I had no idea there's a freaking shot that is not available in the US for some reason that lowers UTIs by 80%. I had no idea. It's available in the UK. I might go.
Yes, you should.
That's crazy.
Yes, if that's something that, like, again.
And like, more women are affected by UTIs than men.
Oh, 100%.
And they are painful.
Yeah, extremely painful.
And they do halt your life when you're going
and the
through
only
one.
reason that we're more affected by it is because of the literal anatomy, like the anatomy of our urethra.
Yeah.
That is why it's more. Like, I just want to yell.
I know.
And I'm like, it's so wild to me,
so wild.
and disheartening and upsetting and horrific. And I want change, and I know you do too. And I know the people in our life want it too.
Yeah.
And I think the first part of that change is like not only educating ourselves, creating more information, spreading awareness. And like, we don't know all the facts. We had to look up a lot of these things. And like, but like being curious enough to look these things up and to take care and to look into why
this is happening.
Why has there not been research on this before?
Yeah. And if you are a doctor, taking the time with all of your patients, like not and believing your patients when they talk to you about what their concerns are, and looking into those concerns, because nobody knows what somebody feels on the inside except that person. So if they're experiencing something, believe them.
Completely agree. We need to feel like we can be taken care of by our health system.
Yeah.
I don't think that should be a given right.
Yes.
You know, that should be, or not even given, like that should just be a right.
Yeah.
That as humans, we have a right.
Yeah,
we have right and access to that.
Yep.
But that's another episode, guys.
Well, we would love to hear your guys' thoughts. We would love to hear if you're affected by any of this, or have had health concerns because of this, or have been treated differently by doctors because of being any different gender, race, whatever that is. We want you to know we're here to support you. We thank you so much for being here. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like, and we will see you next week on FemTell All.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.